So Hargreaves Lansdown, for those of you who don't know, are the largest retail platform in the UK. We're not institutional, we're retail. So we've got about 2 million direct clients, about 42% of the market. They're quite big, volume intensive. We give pensions, SIPs, ISAs, we have our own fund range, share dealing on the platform. It's quite a complex environment. It's about 2,500 staff members, about half of those in operations. And it deals with a whole plethora of challenges and obviously product range, which are exciting and some of it quite innovating as well. So it's quite a diverse and complex environment to operate on, and it's not London based, it's Bristol as well. They're one of the UK regional powerhouses, as it were. Founded 20 plus years ago by Mr. Hargreaves and Mr. Lansdown. And we went public quite a few years ago now. So it's a public, and up until Christmas it was FTSE 100. We just slightly dropped out, but hopefully we've got plans in place to rectify that. So I've been around for quite a while. I started in the late 90s in asset management. I've been in asset management pretty much the whole time. I was the CTO of Needle Asset Management and the CTO and COO of Jupiter Asset Management, and then the COO of ThinkFolio for IHS Market. And now I run operations for Hargreaves Lansdown. I've been there for about 3.5 years. So my primary focus when I was looking at this was actually on the investment side, fund management. I'll come on to some of the challenges with client retail data in a minute, but the first thing I did when I was brought in, and I was brought in to restructure the fund management business a couple of years ago. They were having significant challenges. It was a lot of legacy tech, and we had a small fund range and massive growth plans. And the operating model that was currently sat on was very distributed, would be a good way to call it. We had quite a lot of spreadsheets, over 100. And although we did have data warehouses, I think we had 17, most of the work was actually carried out in spreadsheets, so they may as well have just not been there, the data warehouses, for all the work that they did. So I was looking for operational efficiency and data management. But the main driver to get all this was people. So we had to do a bit of restructuring to set the whole thing up for success to begin with. So I needed to build a model that was scalable. We had a fund range of 9 funds. We've now got 21. So we've done, 11 funds in 2 years, and we got another 6 this year. So we're driving flow into this business quite dramatically. And to do that, you need automation, and the first thing you need to do is sort out your data. So because we had a plethora of risk systems, OMSs, all the rest of it, no structured data model. So the first thing we tackled was a data model, and then we started to retrofit the applications where we kept them onto the data model. So you needed a good data structure, needed to be flexible, needed to be scalable, and it needed to be business-led as opposed to IT-led. We do have a big IT department. We have lots of data architects, engineers, we have some great developers, but they were working on some of the bigger projects. And I was focused on the fund management side and getting revenue through the door. So it had to be business-led. So we used, obviously, our IT colleagues for single sign-on and making sure it was cloud-based and making sure we could get it in. It was integrated, it was secure, it was robust enough, and it could handle some of the cyber due diligence that we have. Because we're such a big retail player with so many clients, the GDPR implications and the cyber implications are quite significant. So well done to Christian and Emma for getting over that hurdle, because it is a hurdle. And we got ourselves across the line, and we did an RFP. We narrowed it down from 10, because I came from a technology background as well, straight down to 2, and ICS 1 hands down. So we went fast track into it with a phase 1 and phase 2 plan. What was in phase 1 and phase 2 was subject to a little bit of change, but broadly it stayed in line. And we started to fast track through, mainly with business analysts, quants, and operational people. A few developers, not many at all, and one architect. So, but it was mainly driven by the operational people who were going to be running it day to day, and by the quants with a few fund managers when they looked in. So these are the key things everybody knows about. You've got multiple systems. I've got 2 different OMSs. You've got 2 different risk systems. You've got a strategic asset allocation model that we were just implementing. And we had a lot of in-house built spreadsheets and a whole plethora of data warehouses that the quants use to basically do their predictive analysis. I'll come on to some of the predictive analysis in a minute, because I don't think we answered your survey, because we do it quite a lot, especially in the outsourced model, because the bulk of our fund range is outsourced, segregated mandates. So for Jupiter, Troy, Artemis, all those people under the hood. So the multi-manager funds are usually a concatenation of about 5 different fund managers under the hood. So we had all that coming into the model. We have a lot of FCA oversight because obviously we are the biggest player. They're very worried about monopolies, so we basically have the FCA camped out in our business 24/7. So we had a lot of that scrutiny, and you know, to be fair to them, they were very good on the guidance side as well, because we were trying to do this in the most efficient way possible without having any client damage in the middle of COVID while implementing consumer duty. So there was a lot going on. And the business itself, like a lot of businesses have been around a long time, with such a big volume sensitive business, we had a lot of legacy technology, an awful lot, and trying to get it all in a cloud-based technology solution when the bulk of our technology was distributed was quite a challenge. And we didn't really have any data quality or governance, to be fair. It's you know, people say they do, but when it's on a spreadsheet, you can't really justify it, and you can't really say somebody's checked it, because half the time you have no idea. So the typical challenges we had were reducing our operating margin, which is very key to my job, while trying to not increase the operational risk, but increase our oversight of operational risk, and reduce the technology footprint and reduce the complexity of that, and also to upskill the people. You know, one of the challenges we had when we were putting in not just ICS, but all our platforms, people get very worried about their job. But the goal is not to reduce the operational footprint, it's to redistribute it and make them more proactive instead of reactive. Because to grow, you know, it's rare you actually manage to get cost out of the business in terms of people. You want to redistribute it and use all that knowledge you've built up over the years and focus them on more value add activities. So we did a lot of training, and the ICS guys can testament to this, to upskill the people. So we created our own data team. Previously it was quants, and they sit in operations now, and they've grown, and they run this day to day. And they interact with mostly the fund managers now and a lot of the sales people. We originally put it in for operational efficiency and to scale and to grow the fund business. It's now used a lot for predictive analysis. So we do a lot of sales predictions. We do a lot of third-party fund predictions. We analyze their performance trends. We analyze their rotational of their senior staff. And we try to predict when and where things are going to happen so we can preempt it. So it's moved from a more operational focused engine to a lot of predictive technology, and that includes ESG, but I'll come on to the challenges a lot in a sec. So we did put in a data strategy. We used the data governance mechanism. We have a big data group in the firm, and they're very good at coming up with governance strategies and architecture theories and structures like that. Not so good at implementing stuff. So we took the baseline from them and then said goodbye and went off and did it using that baseline. So that's pretty much where we were. So I took 2 or 3 quant guys out of the day jobs, a couple of data ops people, and a fund manager, and they were implementing the whole thing. So then, the standard data model, basically what we wanted was, we didn't really care if it was a data lake or a data warehouse. We wanted an all-in-one tool that we could implement and the business could own. That was the key to it. The business users had to own it because it had to work for them. The issue we had with the current model was it was technology owned. So getting change done was very difficult, not because they weren't good, but because there's a whole architecture they were supporting. And the distributed technology, as Christian alluded to, the last time we upgraded the data warehouse, it took about a year. I didn't want to wait a year. I had to launch 8 or 9 funds in that year. I wasn't waiting for this. So I wanted something that could come in, work out of the box with as little rework as possible, and could do a lot of the additional add-on benefits. Because we were taking data, as all the investment managers do. We had all the standard risk, performance, liquidity, all that metrics coming in from the OMS, the risk system, the research, the asset allocation models. And then you've got all the third-party data, because we run over 40 segregated mandates. So all that was coming in an unstructured form, they're all on spreadsheets basically. And then you had some outsourced operations, because we have NT in the back. So you've got fund accounting data, you've got custody data, you've got all the depository stuff, you've got the transfer agency data, all of that coming in. And that was all coming in different time periods, in different structures, and I wanted it all in pretty much daily. So there was quite a lot of work to do, but we broke it down into phase 1 and 2 and went for it. So one of the keys was also to change how we were doing things. So one of the sad things about when you implement change in the business is people are used to doing processes in a certain way. And even if you put in a new tool set, you don't really gain the efficiencies unless you change the processing at the same time. So we went through the typical framework. We defined metrics. We actually defined where we wanted to get to first, and then we built metrics to get us there on the journey. So it's worked out very well. When I talk about reduced manual adjustments by 80%, actually we had a mechanism called informs that were breach notifications that went to the FCA. They reduced by over 90%. So, because we were training, we were doing a couple of 100,000 trades a day. When we're doing that sort of volume, you get mistakes. We were able to analyze where the mistakes were happening and fix them at source. And we could only do that because we're getting the whole data flowing through the data system. So when we put the risk system in first, we looked at all the risk data. We looked at where all the issues were occurring. We linked it up with things like metric stream as well, so we could watch it both in tandem. And then we started to eliminate the errors. So that was one of our first phases of delivery. We linked ICS Athena up to the risk system, which is the main one's actually Barrow 1. And then we went through and put through our SLAs and KPIs against every system we linked up. And then we rolled it out from that basis, and that includes all the third-party managers. So we went and renegotiated all of our IMS with all the third-party managers and told them, this is the structure of the data we want. If you don't want it in this structure, we're not going to do business anymore. And we did it like that. It's cloud native, which was a blessing because it's made our lives fantastically easy from that perspective. We don't have to worry about upgrades anymore. We still test, obviously, make sure it still works. But we're able to test our own changes now. We do use the calculation engine. We use it for things like fair value pricing now as well. So we automated that as well. So that used to take us quite a long period of time. We now do it real time. We have a lot of models built into the system. So we weight all the portfolios against those models. And if there's outside of tolerance, it flags up straight away. That was done manually by the quants every day. It took them 6 hours. It happens in about a minute and a half now. So we've built out our data team, and they're worth their weight in gold. I have to hide them now because most of the business are trying to get MI out of them, even though we've given it out to users and given them training. One of the points that Arnie made is you give them all this great data, and then they start to think about the data, and then you start to get a big queue of requests. Can you just build this dashboard? Can you enhance this? For the data scientists and the quants, it's easy because you just give them Python access and they do it themselves, or Power BI. But most of the fund managers need a bit more glad handling, so you have to do a lot for them. But that's great because this was never put in for the fund managers or the data scientists. They love it, so they can't get enough of it. Every single fund manager uses it on a daily basis now. We've cut down breaches, as I said. Most of the breaches are now caused by third-party suppliers, not by ourselves. That was not the case before we put this in. It was mostly us, because when you're putting this much volume through spreadsheets, interlinked, running macros, it'll break all the time. One of the things that constantly happened to us was the spreadsheets that were getting so big that when you had more than 2 or 3 people in them, it would grind to a halt, and you just couldn't give them enough processing power. Now we're on ICS. I think we've upgraded our processing power twice. Happens pretty much near real time. And that's driven by the volume we're pushing through it. We're pushing probably 3 times the volume through this now that we were a year ago. One of the ways we got this through, and we did get it through pretty quickly, was I embedded the audit function in the project team, and somebody from clients as well. So they made sure that they knew how it all worked and they have access as well. But I removed the fund manager's right to override the price. So we put in a price hierarchy and just said, this is the price you're using. If you don't like it, don't buy that. So, and that's the way we did it, because otherwise you could end up with all sorts of stuff. So everything's fed into this first, and then it goes. So ICS Athena is our main golden source. Everything goes into that, and then we feed the risk system, the OMS system, the performance attribution system, and then we get backward feeds from that. So when they want to look at their risk models, they typically look at it in ICS Athena as opposed to in Barra 1, because Barra 1 is quite complex if you're not a data scientist. So whereas you can build a lot more dashboards in Athena, and it's a lot more user-friendly. So actually, we have a couple of modeling tools now, but the majority of the modeling actually takes place, and the views of it are in Athena. Obviously, we, as a fund management business, Hargreaves are quite small. Although we have 150 billion or so, it's only about 10 or 15 of that goes through the in-house funds. A lot more goes through third parties. But we have a massive range because we're trying to offer clients everything that they could possibly get somewhere else. So we have mixed asset funds, we have bonds, we have global corporate bonds, we have derivatives, we have ETFs, we have passive funds, we have straight equity funds. For that sort of scale, for our size, we needed something that was quick and had a structure, and it was repeatable, and that's the benefits we've got from this. Our operational function is massively improved. We do a thing called a colleague survey every 6 months, where we go through all the staff in the company and say, what you like, what you don't like, which areas do you think needs improvement? It's people, process, technology, culture, that's the whole thing. The operational people were at the bottom, they're now at the top. Off the back of ICS, we've implemented nav validation tools that have, cut out a lot of the manual processing. Regulatory reporting, we structured and shipped off now, and that works seamlessly. Fact sheets, the same. It took us 2 to 3 months to produce fact sheets. We're now able to do it in a much quicker time. It's all automated. All the data was clean, structured, and pushed out. We now have an IBOR view as well as an ABOR view, removing a lot of the pressure that we got from the fund management side of the business. There is a tendency, and my colleagues will know in the fund management business, of as soon as cash hits their investment bucket, they invest it, even if it hasn't actually settled, even if it's not investable cash, it goes out the door and then you've got an overdraft. That process has got a lot better. Our cash management as a result of this is much more efficient, which means the funds themselves have got cheaper because the overdraft has reduced, the processing times have increased. So, we've knocked a couple of basis points off the overall running of the funds. We do a lot of income data projections and payments, financial modeling to make sure for the income producing funds, we don't have balloon payments, so we can smooth the income distribution over the year. Whereas before it was done in spreadsheets, so that we're trying to work out what payments would be in 6 months' time, and it was not as efficient. So that makes the income to clients much more efficient. We don't have balloon payments at the end of the year, which everybody screams at, and finance are a lot happier. And we've managed to standardize some pre and post-trade compliance, because we do have different OMSs, although we're consolidating that, so it makes that easier. And as I said, we've now doubled, and we'll probably have tripled the fund range by next year, with no uplift in people. So it's all been through automation, and we've got a lot of spare capacity now. So it's the smoothest data warehouse, data lake, data model, whatever we're going to call it, implementation that I've been through. It's probably one of the only products we've implemented where everyone has been happy afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you.